Hi, everybody. Let's move on to chapter 5. This is language in the Rubenstein book. Keep in mind that this chapter, along with the next several chapters, are all part of Unit 3, which is culture, according to the College Board. So chapter 4, chapter 5, language, chapter 6, religion, and chapter 7, ethnicity, all belong to Unit 3, which is culture. Here's the introduction. Over 7,000 languages in the world today. We all knew that. Only 11 are spoken by 100 million or more. Really, the key here is how this is connected to culture. Cultural values, religion, ethnicity, whichever you want to look at, your traditions, they're spread by language. So when people are threatened by outside forces, language is usually the first one to take a hit. And that's why they try to preserve this at all costs, which we talked about and which we'll get into later. And the other thing we'll get into is English the language of power, globalization. I remember for our discussion earlier, it obviously is, and we'll bring that up again in this unit. Here's where English is right now. And you can see how widespread it is. Remember, you can rephrase the question two different ways. The language with the most speakers, obviously, is Mandarin. But when you change the wording of the question, and they may do this on the AP, is what is the most widely spoken? And as you can see by this map, it is obviously English. Key issue 1, where are the world's languages distributed? Remember, language moves with the speakers. New languages develop in isolation. That'll come up more on key issue 4. And there are different types of languages, obviously, and how we classify them. Institutional, obviously, is going to be more education and government based. It's not the same as an official language. An official language is the language used by the government to conduct all their business. We do not have an official language. Remember that. We're more institutional. We use English for education and government, but the federal government has not set up an official language for the United States. Remember, to preserve your language, one of the key things you want to have is a literary tradition. Obviously, this is something that is written down for future generations. You can read it, and that helps preserve your language. If you don't have a literary tradition, it may not last. And that's kind of where we get into vigorous. This is something that's spoken daily, but it doesn't have a daily tradition. This may be some sort of language that's spoken face-to-face at home, mixtures of languages like Creole or something like that. It's not necessarily threatened with extinction, but they don't have a literary tradition, so it's not quite as widely used as an official or institutional language. Here are the 3 largest language families. Indo-European obviously is the biggest. That's with English. You can see the bar graph there. 46% of languages fall into this family, and that's part of the trees, which we'll get to shortly. Sino-Tibetan only because of Mandarin is the second largest. You can see it in the blue on the graph. Niger-Congo comes in a distant third. Obviously, a lot of the African languages, Swahili particularly. All right, the trees. The family is a collection of languages related through ancestral languages before recorded history. That's the trunk. So we're literally talking tens of thousands of years ago. Before recorded history. Nothing was written down. Obviously, nothing was recorded. So Indo-European is where English is going to be found. Again, before recorded history is the key to understanding what the family is. The branch is within the family. So obviously the branch of a tree. It's a collection of all the languages related through a common ancestral language. So if you look at the tree there, you can see Germanic and then West Germanic. Do English, German, Afrikaans, Dutch, whatever. Are they all related? Yeah, because they all came through a common ancestor. And we get in the origins of English. If you remember all the tribes that invaded the UK, mixed everything together, all of them are combined together. And so we're all part of that language branch because of where those invaders came from. And lastly, the group is a collection of languages within the branch, common origins, recent past. It's essentially the leaves. These have evolved into, those branches have then evolved into their own individual language. And so English is part of a group, Dutch and so forth. Okay, let's stop there.